It's another edition of Unplugged as we gear towards round 9. At the time of recording, we are actually less than 24 hours out from the first bounce of the clash with Geelong. And I know last year when we played Geelong, we did a live broadcast because we almost played the next day. Ironically, we'd played the Gold Coast the week before, and it was a 4-day break into the Geelong game. And we looked pretty cooked by the time we got to that game. Hopefully we can guard against that this time. A 6-day break. It was pretty hot at Metricon, but in saying that, back at home at Marvel and in the early stages of the season, fatigue shouldn't be an enormous factor. But at 4-4, we've got our season back on track. Really important fortnight to come against a couple of the competition's pace setters in the Cats and the Dogs. So we'll find out a lot about that. But on the Gold Coast, it was a 9-point victory. And whilst it wasn't pretty and there was a lot of things that were frustrating, probably hard to be too frustrated by it simply because that happens every time we play the Gold Coast at Metricon. The game plays out exactly like that. And we find a way to get over the line and win it, just as we did on this occasion, coming from behind. Not as far back as we've had to come in the past at that venue, but far enough to give us some nerves when the Gold Coast kicked 3 goals in 3 minutes at the end of the third quarter. And that looked like that might have been it. But 8-15 to 7-12. Some injuries out of the game. Obviously, Zach Jones not out of the game, but out of training in the last 24 to 48 hours with a pretty severe quad that will sideline him for at least 8 weeks. But we'll get Seb Ross back. Congratulations to Seb. He's been a guest on this program. Obviously, he and his wife welcomed twins last weekend. So he'll come back into the fold, but we'll go more into those team changes a bit later on. But H, we were watching the game together, and I think we've watched most of those Gold Coast games together, and they've all played out pretty much the same way.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like it's a recording, and we keep watching the same thing. It's just to get. I think I was saying last week that the games between us are a very, very good contest, but it just seems to be now it's like 3/4 of either a tight contest or Gold Coast somehow run away from us a little bit, and then we come over the top. So the script's kind of written. It feels like so. It's yeah, as frustrating as the first 3/4 were, it was good to be able to run over the top of them and yeah, get the 4 points again. So an interstate win's an interstate win if you look at it that way. And any time you can come over 4 points, that's a great result.
And Nick, yeah, we've on H's point, we've gone into state 3 times and won 2 of them, and both of them really hard-fought wins that have shown a bit of character. That the Giants win and the Suns win.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sign. I mean, obviously, there's still a lot to improve on, and I don't think we played particularly well. It was a tough watch. It was a really hard fought win, like you said. Both teams really cracked in hard. Skills were not at a premium. It was tough to watch, but I think and as you guys have both mentioned, I think it kind of indicative of our experience and the way that our list and our team has been built over the last few years. But it really was that experience, the cool heads, in the clinches in that last quarter towards the end of the third quarter and the start of the last quarter that really kind of settled and took over. And it was those experienced heads that kind of brought us over the line. And in both of those games, I think that the one that you mentioned earlier, round 1, the win against GWS, it's really important to win these types of games against similarly ranked clubs interstate. It's those games that you have to win if you want to be any chance of playing finals.
Yeah, that's right, and dominated the last quarter. And I mean, it's easy to say in retrospect, but once the last quarter started and the game started flowing and we kicked that first goal of the last quarter, it then became difficult to see how we lose. We're all over them in every sense. It took a while to hit the front. We hit the post a couple of times, but as soon as Ryder hit the front and then we kicked the goal, Ryder put us in front and we kicked the goal 30 seconds later, you thought, well, it's hard to see them kicking 2 to beat us the way the game was going. But nervous moments all the same, but they were able to fight it out. But yeah, a lot of character in that, and I think it was something like 19 inside 50s to 5 in the last quarter and 10 clearances to 2, and a lot of that led by Ryder, Crouch, Steele, Jones, Billings, Marshall, those players that sort of really drove the bus for us. So it probably again demonstrated just how different we are when Paddy Ryder is in the side. We probably don't win that game without his influence at the end.
Yeah, I think we were saying that has he gone ahead of Marshall as being our most important player? I mean, Marshall came back and we looked pretty good. Ryder's come back and we look brilliant. It's he just his understanding and working with the players around him, going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. If you're there, I'm going to give it to you. He just has this uncanny ability to be able to, yeah, basically halve the contests and win the majority of the ones that he wins. So it's a massive inclusion that we've been able to have. It shows you over those few weeks that we didn't have him, just how much we really did miss him. And yeah, I mean, Geelong this week, their rucks are a little questionable at times. So a massive game from him puts us right in the mix again this week. So
He didn't play
he
against Geelong last year, Ryder, because on the 4-day break they left him out. But you're right on his influence, but it's also what he does for Marshall. So saw Marshall even in that last quarter. So when Zach Jones found Higgins, it was because Marshall made that contest where he split the pack, brought the ball to ground. He took a mark on the wing in the last 90 seconds or so that sort of helped seal the game. So it just frees him up so Marshall can roam around a bit. So most of the last quarter, Ryder rucked and Marshall moved around the ground taking marks. And Nick, it just frees up him to be even more damaging.
Absolutely. And I think, we spoke about it last week, but in terms of pure ruck craft, there aren't many better than Paddy Ryder. And it's his game sense and his understanding of what needs to be done at any given time, his leadership out on the field and in those moments, that one where he kicked the goal in the last quarter, his understanding of where his opponent was, who was around him, what the situation was like, what part of the ground he was in, and what he needed to do in that moment to almost stop his own run and not leap for the ball like he normally does. Normally he gets a couple of those 4 or 5 really big steps in and takes a leap at the contest, and that particular one he decided he took 3 steps and stayed down. He kind of half jumped and kept his weight close to ground, his center of gravity close to ground, and had the understanding to kind of stay low, understood where the ball was going to be, how it was going to bounce, all those things to be able to gather, snap, and kick a goal. And obviously that was kind of the sealer, I guess. But yeah, you're right in terms of what he allows other players to do. And we saw when in ruck moments as well the impact that he had on guys like Vitel in the middle of the ground as well. The way that he brings other players into the game, and whether that's at a ruck contest, at a clearance, or in the way that he allows Rowan Marshall to impact the game in other parts of the ground, he's super important. You're right, H. He might be our most valuable player. I'm not sure that he's our best player, but he might have become our most valuable player for those very reasons.
Before we jump into the votes, a guy that's pretty important, it's a bit of a pointer to the way I've gone with my votes as well, is Cal Wilkie. He plays his 50th game this week and hasn't missed a game since debut. And Jimmy Webster also plays his 100th, and I thought he was actually very good on Saturday. Webster didn't make a mistake and hasn't really made many all year. He's got injured a couple of times, but he's been really solid coming back into the side, I reckon, and a good journey to 100 games for him. But Nick, you ventured down. Cal Wilkie fronted the media during the week ahead of that 50th game, and he's just Mr. Reliable, really, in that side. It's been amazing what he's been able to do.
It is amazing, and he's just so cool, calm, and collected. It's like he's a 200 game player. He's only just playing his 50th game, and I know that he came in a little bit more experienced. He'd spent some time in the SANFL and had developed already as a player before he'd even played a game. But what he's been able to do since round 1, 2019 in his debut is quite amazing. Did a bit of research during the week after that press conference and wrote a piece during the week. But some of the data around Cal Wilkie and what he's been able to do, as essentially a third year player in the AFL, Champion Data rate him as elite in 1%ers, spoils, contested one-on-ones, contested marks, and disposal efficiency, which is quite amazing. That the skill set and the tools that he has at his disposal is really amazing. And there aren't many players like him in the AFL, let alone someone who's only played 49 games of senior footy. And just his calmness, both with the ball and without the ball, the way that he kind of marshals the troops in the back half of the ground, and his his ball use, his delivery when he's got the ball in hand is impeccable.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal, I think, and a good segue into the votes. And I went across the 3, 2, and 1. I gave one vote to Brad Crouch. Thought that was the best game he's played for our club. Obviously, he's only played a handful, but the last couple of weeks he's been really, really good. Gave some apologies. I know he was voted the sainter of the round, I think, on the Facebook thing, but couldn't quite squeeze Billings in. I thought he was outstanding. Couldn't get Ryder in there either. I thought he was really pivotal to the result, and a few others as well. But I gave the one vote to Crouch, 2 to Jack Steele. I thought his leadership just kept us in the game early stages, kicked a couple of really pivotal goals at important stages, and his clearance work was impressive. And I gave Cal Wilkie 3 votes. He took 14 marks, took 10 in the first half, something like 9 intercepts, didn't waste a disposal. And I thought that without the efforts of him and Dougal Howard, who gets an apology as well, I thought we would have been 5 goals down at half time without those 2 players. And then Wilkie kept going, and his last quarter was big as well. So he got my 3 votes. Nick, which way did you go?
Yeah, I found it really tough. And honourable mentions to Dougal Howard and Cal Wilkie. I couldn't quite fit Wilkie into my votes this week, but I gave 1 vote to Brad Crouch. Yeah, I think it was his best game by a long way. I think in the second half, especially that cool head that we mentioned before, and in that last quarter to have the composure to gather and kick that goal from 50. He's not a noted goal kicker, especially from range, from distance, but had the presence of mind to kind of lower the eyes and just drill it. I thought he was very good. I gave 2 votes to Jack Billings. Just another really solid game from Jack, and I think he's probably in the top 2 or 3 for the best and fairest at this point of the season. He's doing a bit of everything. This weekend he had 25 touches, 13 marks, 525 meters gained. Did a bit of everything and kicked a couple of goals, really important goals as well at important times of the game. And he was very close to best on ground, I thought, but another Mr. Reliable, I guess, for us in Jack Steele. Last week, I think, was the first week that he probably wasn't in the votes at all, but the week before, I should say. But Jack Steele, 2 goals, also really important goals, 28 touches, 508 meters gained, 6 clearances, 8 tackles. He just does everything, and he does everything at a really, really high level. And I thought he was our most impactful player across the full 4 quarters.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a range this week. Apologies to a few of the players you've given votes to, and I've actually, for reasons we've talked about a few minutes ago, I've gave Paddy Ryder 1 vote. Just gave us so much, and as you're saying, it freed up Marshall to do what he needed to do. He gave us first option, gave us basically a target to kick the crucial goal. So it's a pretty good game for 1 vote. Gave 2 to Cal Wilkie. Down back, that was as solid a game as you could want from a defender. That's the sort of game that, as you're saying, a 150 game player plays, not someone in there halfway through their 3rd season. It's just he's such a solid defender, and there's no panic. There's no, I don't know what to do. It just gets in there and gets it done every week for us. It's one of the best pickups we've had for a long time. So he got 2, and I had to give 3 to captain. He missed out completely the round before, so he's started to pick up a couple more here. Just led by example and gave us everything we need him to do. So good to get him back in the votes again. But a couple, Crouch and Billings, and even Webster probably could have snuck in for 1. He was quite good, but it was one of those hard weeks again to find only the 3.
You're getting some good goals out of our midfield too. Jack Steele's kicked 9 this year. I think Billings has kicked 8 or 9 as well. We've seen Marshall kick goals. We've seen Ryder obviously hit the scoreboard this week. Crouch kicked the goals. Zach Jones kicked a couple the week before. I mean, without the forward line absolutely dominating in recent weeks, we've been able to get a good spread out of those mids. And our next guest was one of those who certainly did that towards the latter stages of his career in particular. He was a pretty exciting player over the journey with the Saints. Didn't have a lot of hair, but it used to flow a lot as he was running down the middle of either Moorabbin or Waverley during the late 80s and early 90s. Had a terrific seasons in 87, 88 and 91 in particular, which included a 33-goal season and the second goal of the elimination final in 1991. A bit of a blast from the past and a left field one, but it is Frankie Coghlan that we'll speak to this week.
Greg's handball, very good. Winmar Coghlan kicks the goal, does he? Yes! Makes some ground. Burke's quick kick goes straight up in the air. Kicker couldn't take it. Yates slipped over. Coghlan with the run of it. A good chance at the goal, and he does. The first one for Coghlan.
Well, the next special guest, I remember when I was a kid, one of the very first football videos I watched was Year of the Rising Saints, which was a bit of a snapshot of the 1991 season. And I remember as a kid thinking, geez, Frank Coghlan was dominating. He was kicking goals every week, some big bags towards the end of the year. He played a very good game in the elimination final. We unfortunately went down to the Cats, and obviously digging a little bit deeper, had a very fine career, 109 games with the Saints, debuting in 1986 and playing his last game in the latter stages of the 1992 season. Had outstanding years, particularly in 87, 88, and of course that 91 season we speak of. Frank Coghlan, thanks very much for joining us.
No, my pleasure, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Now, your early days, so Sandhurst, so Bendigo boy, you would have been zoned to Carlton, and as I understand it, that looked like it might have been your pathway at the start of your AFL journey. Did you always anticipate that if you were going to make it, you would have been a blue bagger?
Yeah, well, obviously all the Bendigo boys at that time, Carlton was zoned to Bendigo, obviously, and we had a training group up there at Bendigo. Greg Williams was a part of it, Gavin Exall, quite a few of the guys that went on and played. Quite a few of them went down and played a few practice games and didn't quite make it. But yeah, we had a pretty good time. I think Greg Diesel and I played a couple of practice games the year that he was trying out for Carlton, and so was I. He was obviously a lot more, dedicated, I guess, than myself. And as we know, he was one of the most dedicated footballers going around. And he sat in the middle for the whole of the couple of practice games, and I was stuck down in the forward pocket, and I wasn't too concerned. I was just, country boy having a bit of fun down there, and consequently, well, actually, we both got delisted, and history has it that Diesel went on and went down to Geelong the next year. I went back to Sandhurst after having a go at Carlton and played another year at Sandhurst. And then, lucky for me, Johnny Beveridge was really keen on getting me to St Kilda, along with quite a few other clubs at the time I had the opportunity to go to, but I was really taken aback by Johnny Beveridge, and, obviously St Kilda were pretty much at rock bottom then when I went down there, and I was part of the gradual rise to, like you said before, at the end of my career, we were a very strong unit. And I was there when Harves played his first game, Berkey played his first game. Lowy and I actually played our first game the very same day against Sydney Swans at Moorabbin in the mud, and obviously it suited my game. Not sure about Lowy. I don't think it was his best game ever, but the Moorabbin mud didn't probably suit Lowy too much. That was the beginning of my career, and I had a great time at St Kilda. There's a hell of a lot of friends that I still keep in contact with, and enjoyed, watching these young stars that went on to greater things. Being part of it and watching them play so well, and watching St Kilda rise up again.
Frank, you mentioned that you were pretty impressed by Johnny Beveridge, and obviously Bevo is a bit of a legend at Moorabbin. But what was it about Johnny that impressed you, and what was that process like of from Carlton, Sandhurst to St Kilda? What was it about Bevo that kind of turned you?
Well, he obviously made the process pretty easy. He's such a gentle man, and really cares about all these players that he brings in, that he brought into the club. He come up, and I remember Mum and Dad had scones on the table for him, and he couldn't be, he's such a gentleman, like he went away, and Mum and Dad said, "Oh, look, you just got to go to St Kilda because they're the club," So he's a terrific fella, and he's still doing good work around the club, I understand. So that's great.
And you mentioned the whole being up that way, and a lot of the players getting recruited down the Carlton, that sort of stuff. About probably half of them ended up at St Kilda towards the end. So how was it reuniting with all those players who eventually did come the same direction as what you ended up being?
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to know them that well when I was trying out for Carlton. They were the guys that were winning premierships year in, year out, and they were obviously Kenny Sheldon come from our area. Where I'm from Bridgewater. I'm a farmer from Bridgewater. Well, his parents were farmers at Midiamo, which is it's the same minor football league, and only 20 k's up north of here. So I enjoyed having Bomber come down, and he ended up being a terrific coach. And I learned a lot from all those Carlton guys. They're all terrific fellas, and really helped the rise of the club.
You had 25 possessions on debut, played 5 games in a difficult year for the Saints, but 1987 would be a big year. Darryl Baldock would take over as coach. Plugger would win a Brownlow. Nathan Burke would debut. We'd see guys like Winmar come to the club. And you'd have an unbelievable year, played 21 games, averaging 20 possessions a game. And St Kilda would really look like they were going places. They'd win 5 in a row late in the year. I imagine 87 would have been a bit of fun for an emerging player to be playing every week in a side that was getting better.
It was, and we started well that year, and we had a bit of a lull, I think, sort of halfway during the year, and come home pretty well. So, it was really exciting for the fans and obviously all the players that we were back in the finals. And it was just unfortunate the way that year sort of panned out in the elimination final. I think we played Geelong, and it was a terrific game, and every player that all the big name players, they all played really well. So it's a great game to look back on too.
Was there something that changed for you in that 91 season? Because obviously, you had a sensational year in front of goal as well. You kicked 33 goals for the season, but in no other year before that had you kicked more than 7 or 8. Did your role change for that 91 season?
I think I was more sort of up forward, obviously. I was recruited to the club as a non-baller. I suppose every player that comes to the club comes as a non-baller, but that was my role, and I played ruck rover and for most of those early years, and then when Berkey and halves, they were getting moving then, and so I sort of went down forward a bit more and played underneath Plugger, and obviously my role was front and centre and kick a few goals every week. But Yeah, I think it was just the fact that I was a bit closer to goal. You know, I was never renowned as a big goal kicker. I was more sort of in and under, I guess.
So you mentioned these younger players that were coming in after yourself. Were you asked to take any of them under your wing at any point and try to show them the way and show them the way around the club, or just basically keep him in line, I guess, as well?
Yeah. Well, I guess when Nicky first came over, I was working at a good friend of mine, Jerry Ryan's Jayco Caravans, and he's a Bendigo boy, of course. And so Jerry said to me, because he's fully involved with the club, as you'd all know, and he said to me, I think you better sort of take, using your words, take Nicky under your wing and look after him off the field. And I was actually his boss at work. I was one of Jerry's managers, and I was looking after Nicky. I could tell you a few stories about the times that we spent together in the Jayco team. But look, there was a lot of younger kids that I just admired their work ethics, and I think any country boy that come along, being a country boy myself, I always tried to help them out, of course. But probably Nicky is about one that you can pin down to me. I still see a lot of Nicky.
That 91. So that 91 elimination final, that we always talk about the atmosphere. St Kilda hadn't played finals for about 2 decades. Gilbert McAdam kicked the first goal of the game. The roar was amazing. You kicked the second goal of the game. Can you take us through your memories of the atmosphere that day? St Kilda fans hadn't seen that for so long, and I imagine to be swept up in it as a player would have been amazing.
It was, yeah, it really was. It was a damn shame that we lost, but like you say, well, like I said before, all the good players, Lowy, Plugger, Gilbert, Nicky, Berkey, unfortunately, got collected by Gary Ablett, and David Grant got collected by someone. I think it might have been the same fellow, actually. But anyway, and Spud did a great job down back, of course. Unfortunately, all their good players played well too. I think Billy Brownless kicked a heap, Barry Stone, Gary Ablett got a bit of it. It was a terrific game, terrific crowd, and I don't think we were overawed by it. Like, Plugger was kicking a few points early, which would have, you could never blame him for it, because I think he kicked 9. But if we had kicked a few of those points, went the right way, gee whiz, we would have beaten them. We would have been that far ahead at half time. I don't think they would have been able to shake us off.
I think Plugger kicked 3 in the first quarter, 3 points, which wouldn't have happened too many times. It
wouldn't. Like I say, he's the best kick that's ever played, I think. And we can't be too upset about that. These things happen.
You mentioned Spud, and obviously over the last couple of years, when we speak to guys from your era and just kind of after, obviously that's a pretty strong topic of conversation. What are your memories of Spud?
Oh, well, once again, a farm boy. Bloody terrific fella. So funny, so genuine, so loyal, so such a shame. Everyone loved Spud that crossed his path, and I just wish we could get him back, but we will never have another spud. So, yeah.
Now, you're there when interstate travel sort of started becoming a thing to happen with the inclusion of West Coast, then Brisbane, and then in '91 Adelaide. How was the transition from only travelling to the next suburb to play to getting on a plane travelling 3 hours to Perth, and just that you would have basically the sort of almost the almost a guinea pig, I guess, to go, yeah, how's this going to work? And so how was it in the early days?
Well, in the early days, I think we were still having a fair bit of fun, and the longer trips that we could have when we were away, probably most of the guys, me included, were thinking, how good's this? But then obviously, we had to knuckle down, and everyone did. It was a little bit of what's the word? Bit of a funny situation for a start, going over to Perth and up to Brisbane and turning around and coming straight back. And, you for a while there, and I don't think it was just the St Kilda club, but most teams were always struggling the week after that Perth or Brisbane trip. Different weather, different timelines, and just added a new dimension to the preparation, I guess.
In that video I was talking about, Year of the Rising Saint, it's you and Robert Harvey that are putting the ball down Plugger's throat most of the way through that season. I guess a lot of people that played in that era get asked that question. You were there for most of Tony Lockett's formulative years, the 87 year where he broke out, 89 where he was dominating before he got suspended and injured, and obviously 91 where he tore it up. Can you tell us what it was like sharing a forward line with Plugger, but also coming out of the middle and delivering to a target that imposing?
Yeah, well, obviously it was one of my greatest memories to play with Plugger. He's still, in my mind, miles ahead of any other player that's played the game. And I don't think I'm being too biased there. I wasn't a great kicker or anything, field kick, but I was always comfortable when I got the ball, when I was in the middle, that there was only one place to put it, and that's in Plugger's vicinity. And normally, he'd grab it. So, it was pretty easy. It was always in the back of your mind that just got to get the ball and get it down there, and Plugger will do the rest, which invariably he did. But yeah, he was always very thankful and, terrific fella, Plugger, absolute gem.
Similar question. We spoke to Robert Harvey on this show early last year, and he told us how he wasn't even sure that he was going to play footy. He was leaning towards cricket. But at what stage, and having watched him from the beginning, at what stage did you kind of click and go, this kid can play footy. This kid can really play footy?
Yeah. Well, I think us guys that trained with him and saw him sort of do all the work that he did to make himself not just a good player, but a great player. As a kid, I was there when he played his first game, and I think about 3 weeks later he broke his leg really bad, and I saw him being carted off, and I thought, bloody hell, he's got such a good future, that kid, and I thought, I hope that doesn't slow him down, because it was a pretty bad break, I think, at the time. And he just went to work, as he always did, and bounced back, and it's all history. The Ripper. And a good fella to go with it, as we all know.
as Darren was saying earlier, you sort of arrived at the club when we were pretty much rock bottom and finished up when we were actually moving along as a club in a very good direction. How was the shift in the crowd at Moorabbin from when you started to when you were sort of finishing up? Did you feel there was a change, or was they just the same feral bunch every week when you were down there? Did the change of sort of going, okay, we're becoming successful, sort of shift a little or not?
Yeah, maybe. Obviously, when we moved out to Waverley, we were sort of distanced a bit from the crowd. I don't think they were all ferals. There was the odd one, but generally, gee whiz, St Kilda supporters are so loyal, and they hang their hat on everything at the start of each season, and I just want them to see some more success. I think the way they're going about it now, the coach, I think he's great, and all their young boys are stepping up. Unfortunately, we've had a few injuries this season, that took away, a bit of our tools, and as they come back, they're showing that they're still right with it with the top teams. I think it'll be an interesting game tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah, it certainly will. Obviously, a challenge that seems to be every year. Geelong, they don't go away, so it's another challenge for them. And even obviously, we're talking about a final with Geelong. It's always been the way. But 92 for you. Obviously, you played some good footy that year. You missed a few games with injury and the like. Your last game would be about 4 weeks before the finals against West Coast at Waverley in the pouring rain. Can you take us through? I think you turned 30 that year. Obviously, having debuted at 24, I guess the latter stages of your career and how it sort of came to an end.
I don't really remember that last game against West Coast. I know I got a little knee injury towards the end of that year, and we had I had a father that was battling a bit due to age on the farm, so he was sort of indicating he'd love to see me back, and so it didn't take a lot for me to say to Kenny Sheldon at the time, perhaps I might snatch it and go back to the farm. When I did decide that, I'd go back to the farm, I was amazed sort of how many other clubs sort of said to me, well, why not? We think you've got a bit more in you. Why not come and have a crack at our club? And I just said to them, I couldn't play for another club. I just love St Kilda that much. And so I come back and got married, built a house, and then I played a year in Bendigo, and by that stage I was 33 or 34, and I've enjoyed my retirement, I guess.
A bit of a two-parter for me, but going back to the beginning, and we've mentioned how you kind of played alongside some of the greats of the club in Lockett and Frawley and Harvey and Burke and those guys, but there was another legend of the club who you were involved with at the very start of your career, which was Doc Baldock. What was he like as a coach? And then what was that transition between Doc and Alan Davis for about a month or something, and then Kenny Sheldon from Carlton, who you mentioned earlier as well?
Well, I started, my very first coach was Graham Jolly. He taught me a lot. Always had a smile on his face and made it pretty easy for a first-year player down in Melbourne after coming from the country. And then Doc took over, and Doc obviously was a legend of the club, and we were all that excited, and for good reason. He was a terrific fella. Unfortunately, he had those health issues towards, it was only a couple of years he was coaching for. I think it was in his second year that he had his first stroke, and Davo, his best mate, took over. Davo was a ripping bloke, called a spade, and we all enjoyed those couple of weeks with Davo, and then then Bomber took over, which was good. So I've learned a lot from all my coaches, and enjoyed every moment of their meetings and spending time with them.
And I was just going to ask, last one for me is, what's a lasting memory of playing for the club? What's the one thing you'll look back at the club and say, that's what it was, that's how I see it, and that's what I want to remember and tell anyone who asks me about it, that this is what it meant to me.
Yeah. That's a hard question. Probably, well, I had a lot of soft tissue injuries. I was really lucky with my my footy career. I didn't have any major knees, ankles, or anything like that. But I did have a lot of soft tissue injuries. And when I first went down there, Barks was captain of the side, and Barks was just an absolute legend. And I remember after me doing about 4 hamstrings in 2 or 3 years, and as soon as I did a hamstring, you'd be calling for the trainer, and you'd be off and had the ice on. And I watched Barks one day. I think I might have been out injured with a hamstring, and I watched Barks one day. He did his hamstring early in the game, and he was captain, and he played on for the whole game with I don't think he had any needles or anything to keep him out there. And I just shook my head and thought, here I am, and I don't think anyone could play with a good hamstring, and that was a good hamstring, I'm sure it was. And I thought then, well, there's a leader, and there's someone who, we all should look up to, and he's all about St Kilda and the club St Kilda, and he plays for the jumper, and he was captain, and he wasn't going to walk off until that game had been finished. So I don't know that he played for another 4 or 5 weeks. It probably didn't do him much good, but when he was out there, he wasn't going to get off the field until the job was done.
Well, Frank, you're a terrific player over the course of that period, and we always, you measure someone that St Kilda were in a much better position when you left than when you started, that's for sure. And a really healthy run through that early 90s, which you were a major part of, as we were talking about. I think you had 28 shots a goal in 7 weeks to end the 91 season. You kicked 5 against Brisbane and then kicked 4 against Sydney, and got the 3 Brownlow votes despite Plugger kicking 11 in that same game. So that was a fair effort. But thank you very much for joining us. Good luck with everything back home down there, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries, Darren. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the other boys.
I was really impressed with, as the other coaches, was the work rate and the real grind mentality and the spirit that the players showed at the end. And we were sort of running away a little bit with the game, by not much, but we sort of dominated field position in the last quarter and really had our tails up. So just to turn that margin round, 25 points in the last quarter, and our work rate was fantastic.
Hope you enjoyed the chat with Frankie Coghlan there. Also a little bit of Brett Ratton speaking after the results on the weekend. We look ahead to round number 9 against the Cats, and a reminder also that you can catch the article, Nick, that you in regards to the chat with the presser from Cal Wilkie and some of the thoughts and the stats around that. It's at Zero Hanger. Is that where people go to find that?
Yeah, that's right. Got to have a good listen to Cal and ask him some questions at his presser on Tuesday, and had a chat with our old friend Chris Toche, who was the one who recruited Cal and got some of his thoughts from his time a couple of years ago. And yeah, just really interesting period. And Cal's just a lovely guy, and just wish him all the best for his 50th this week.
For the Geelong clash this week, so we know the changes and the news filtered through around Zach Jones. It was an interesting one that with Zach. He got injured at training, and Dan Cherney, who was a St Kilda supporter who writes for Fairfax, put a piece up at about 12:15, and no one picked it up. It didn't get noted by anyone until after 8 o'clock at night, I think, when it started to really filter through. And so unfortunately, a pretty bad quad, and he'll miss about 8 weeks. So he goes out of the side. Also omitted was Nick Caulfield, which is an interesting one. He certainly struggled in the early stages of the year. Thought he found his feet a bit, but in the last couple of weeks has battled. Looked a bit sore last week potentially, but not totally against that. But you certainly want him to get his form back. And Darragh Joyce was omitted. I know we've probably spoken a bit about that, but I actually thought he was all right on the weekend. I thought that his game against the Gold Coast was one of the better games he's played for us. And I understand that matchups and things like that, but of all the weeks to get dropped, he was a little bit stiff. Seb Ross comes back in, so that's the mid for the mid. James Frawley will play his first game for the club, having got injured in the practice match against Carlton and came back in the VFL a couple of weeks ago. And Tom Highmore, good to see him back. His form's been warranting selection. So it's effectively a lot of likes for likes, where Highmore replaces Caulfield as sort of the intercept player, Frawley replaces Joyce as the key, and Ross replaces Jones in the middle, albeit different type players. So that'll be sort of how that looks. Jaron Geary should play in the twos this week, so he'll get a bit closer to a run. And apart from that, it's sort of Carlisle who's close with that back, which has kept him out for a couple of weeks. Hanbury, who knows? And obviously Gresham out for the year, and Jones for a decent chunk of it. So the injury list is getting smaller, but unfortunately we added another player to it the week just gone. I think Dean Kent had a concussion too, and he should be okay for VFL selection, just to keep a bit of depth on around that. So the changes, I guess, make sense, given everything that we know about Geelong. We probably needed to reinforce the defence a little bit. We really do need to dominate the ruck and play very quickly out of the middle. I think Geelong aren't blessed with leg speed, but they're a very good midfield side. They use the ball well. If we could just break from the middle, and it's a shame we're losing a couple of our quicker players in Gresham and Jones for a game like this, but quick ball movement forward, put a bit of pressure on them. We've beaten them there before. We play all right against them at Marvel generally. So yeah, it's a winnable game, albeit not everything going our way.
Yeah, and it's probably lucky it's not down in Geelong with the weather conditions that are going to be around this weekend. It would have been perfect for them down there. So inside under the roof is much better situation for us. Frawley coming in, a good situation, I believe, because I saw something about him up against Hawkins, and the last few times he's had Hawkins measure. So if he can hold him down to like 1, maybe 2, then we're hitting that mark there. But yeah, the rest of the changes, as you say, like for likes, they're pretty much. I think Caulfield may need a little bit of time just to go get his confidence back. I mean, full of confidence last year, and this year he's just been a little bit hesitant at times. So, I mean, it's probably not the worst thing for him just to go, well, look, you're not just going to be picked every week. You go back, show us, earn your spot back, show us that you should be in the senior team. You just go down the senior, you be too good, and the position will probably open back up again. But yeah, it's disappointing about Jones. That's as you're saying, late today when I heard, I was like, oh, that's not a good thing. I heard about 10 weeks, and I was like, okay, yeah, it must be a pretty bad quad. So yeah, it's unfortunate when his last few weeks he's really picked it up and been really good source for us. So yeah, but otherwise Joyce very unlucky. I mean, I don't think he's done anything wrong for the last 2 weeks. There's a couple of points last week where he just thrown himself in and got the ball out for us, and I thought he was actually finding his feet quite well. So he's probably quite unlucky. Then I think, what was it, Loney? Loney's the sub, so that didn't change from last week. I was surprised he didn't come in ahead of Wood last week, to be honest. Though we thought that might have been the case, but yeah, it was quite surprising when they went with the Wood over him. So it's but as you're saying, quick movement, getting that first use. They're a very in and under, and then get the ball out to the run player on the outside and all that sort of thing. So if they're getting in and under, we've got to maybe don't hang at the back of the pack like both teams generally do. Get around the other side with and sit on the players who are waiting to receive the ball outside. So just shut down that give and run that they get from the back of the pack, and it's going to be a very, very much a match that we need to tactically beat them and get ahead of them.
Yeah, the good part about playing on a Friday night means whoever we play as the sub can get a game with Sandy if they don't get a run. So it's not a waste. Like, I know Sandy didn't play last week, but for example, if you flew an emergency to Queensland, they couldn't have played reserve. So at least if it is Loney or Wood or whoever it is, they can play another game the following day, Nick. But yeah, so we do have to get it tactically right. It's another chance. It does, the bottom line and the financial whatever, the prime time game thing only matters to some degree. But we obviously had that Thursday night marquee fixture against Richmond and were dreadful that night. We've got to make sure we bring something in this.
Well, we've tended to not turn up those big occasions in recent times, and it's about time that we did, and we did that. But I think we've all of us kind of spoken a few times over the last 3 weeks, I guess, at how surprised we were when Dara Joyce got a run over Tommy Highmore. But to his credit, he's justified his selection every week. And both you're right. He's incredibly stiff to go out this week, and I think that record that you talked about, H, of Frawley on Hawkins, I think he's averaged something like 1.6 goals conceded over his last 5 or 6 in those matchups, and he's got a very good record on Hawkins, and so that's that can only be the reason why he's coming in this week for Joyce, because otherwise I don't think Joyce has done anything wrong over his past 2 or 3 to justify being dropped. But they've got a lot of faith in Frawley, obviously. The Caulfield one's a really interesting one. It's going to be interesting to see if he plays for the Twos, because it could be one of those ones where he's looked a step behind all year. I think he's had 1 or 2 decent games. I think the Hawthorn game he was pretty good, but it wasn't a high bar to set. But the rest of the season, he's looked a step behind, a step slow, and just things like reaction times and decision making hasn't been there, and they're the things that I think he really hangs his hat on as a skillful intercept defender, running defender, and he just hasn't been able to show those tools that made him so dangerous last year. So it's a really interesting one. I think he probably needs a week off, and like I said, whether he plays for the Twos or has a week off completely to kind of get himself right. I don't know if he's carrying any niggles or anything like that, but he hasn't looked right all year. Jones is a tough one. I mean, he's been in and out early this year with other soft tissue injuries and stuff, and he just seemed like he was hitting his straps, and the whole midfield as a group, brought in Bytel and Burns, and they've really kind of fit in, and the way that they've worked together as a midfield group has been really impressive, and it felt like they were just starting to get that cohesion together as a group. So for Jones, who's become a really important member of that that middle team is really disappointing, and he must be gutted. But it gives someone like a Ryan Burns another chance to step up again. I was really, really glad to see that both those guys, Bytel and Burns, are still in the team, and they're still getting a run. I think each week they've done some good things. They might not necessarily be, the game winners, but they're doing some good things. They're doing their job. They're reliable, and they offer us something different to what we've been used to over the past couple of years. So I'm glad to see that they're still in the team. Great to see Highmore. I think we've all said that Highmore should probably be in the team every week. He's really impressed. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and looks a lot like Callum Wilkie. He's very calm with the ball. I think he's a bit taller than Cal, but very, very cool and kind of relaxed. He hits the contest hard, but he's very smooth when he's got it. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. It looks like his decision making is very good. The way that he reads the play is very good, and so I'm excited to see him. Hopefully, he gets a solid run. I know a lot of super coach and fantasy players will be happy that he's in the team. I think this is his third game, so we'll get that price bump. But hopefully he gets a good run, because it seems like he deserves it. He's working hard, and he deserves a spot.
Yeah, their midfield, and obviously we spoke about the defence. I mean, the matchups are important there. With, as you say, Frawley will probably get first crack at Hawkins. Howard would therefore go to Jeremy Cameron, who kicked 6 last week. Gary Rowan kicked 5. So whether that's Wilkie or Highmore or Webster potentially. And then guys like Parfitt or whatever would float forward. Their midfield, plenty of experience in there, as we know, with Duncan, Higgins, Selwood, Smith, Menegola, Guthrie, the youngish player in Narkle that can sort of go through there. Dalhouse spends a bit of time through the middle as well. So, yeah, still a very good team, but we know they've struggled a bit in the ruck. Radaglia is the player that they're going with in that role at the moment. We know they've used Reece Stanley and various others in the past. Occasionally they've thrown Blitzarves into the ruck for his athleticism. But generally, I mean, he's an all-Australian fullback. So if they're forced to take him out of there, then that's a good thing as well. So just got to be good with those matchups. Buse is a pretty good lockdown defender for them. So does he go to Higgins or Butler? Who gets the other of those players? We'll see. Interesting with Battle, because Tom Stewart intercepts a lot for them. So whether Battle just tries to pick him off and just try to keep him away from, picking up 25 touches floating across halfback as he does. But they belted us last year when we were competitive for half a game, but we had a 4-day break then, and it might sound like we're making excuses, but that's a genuine one at the end of a pretty long run of matches. So as much as this is a 6-day break coming off hot weather, we've got to equip ourselves better against the top side. We were very competitive against the top echelon last year, whereas Richmond and Port Adelaide have thumped us this year. We obviously beat West Coast, but this is another chance against a grand finalist from last year to show that we're a fair income side. So hopefully we can put our best foot forward. Our team on paper is certainly capable. We're far closer to them than we've demonstrated in the past. It's on our turf. It's another chance on a Friday night. We get an 8-day break coming off this game. So hopefully we can throw everything at it and have a decent old crack across the course of the night. But boys, fingers crossed. I don't mind the squad picked on the back of Zach going out of that team injured, but big chance for us tomorrow night, and go Saints.